Hey, this is BA, and welcome to the Gann-Jensen connection. What we're going to see here is that to understand Gann techniques, there is a person or two out there that's very important that many or most are not aware of. Let's get started on this. About 2005, an investigator was hired by this presenter to better understand the life of Luther James Jensen, known as the Gann circles as LJ. What he discovered, meaning the investigator, would help many better understand Gann's techniques. Jensen worked for W.D. Gann from about 1930 up until Gann's death in the summer of 1955. At that point, Jensen took a couple years off and then joined up with a Wall Street firm that he forecasted for through the 1960s and 70s. Jensen was well off as the investigator found and interviewed an old aging man that knew Jensen personally and had been to his house several times in the late 1930s. A direct quote from this man was that Jensen was, quote unquote, well off, meaning he had a nice house which was nicely decorated. Jensen left behind for us some small pamphlets, of which some were woven into a book entitled Astral Cycles and Speculative Markets. This book is currently, as of this writing, still to be found on the internet. I highly recommend it. And no, I don't sell it. It's out on the internet. The book is critical to understand what Gann was really doing. It contains the square of 90 and an explanation of how to get it working. It also explains things like the business cycle. And this is an excerpt from the book. It said, the work financed by Harvard Committee on Research in Social Sciences has resulted in tracing this correlation, he's talking about the sunspot correlation, from the 17th century South Sea bubble down to the present year. The last sunspot cycle began with a minimum of spots in 1923, a maximum in 28-29, and another minimum in 33-34. Another maximum point is expected late in 1938. The general averages sunspots for the past 100 years are tabulated on the next page. So in this area, okay, the stock market kind of follows the sunspots. The sunspots is the energy behind the business cycle. So when you have maximum or rising sunspots, you have rising business and generally a rising stock market. When you have declining sunspots, you have declining business activity and generally a decline in the stock markets. Now, I'll tell you something additional that you won't find in this work. The actual number, the actual energy in the sunspots is something that's called total magnetic activity. Okay, so there's graphs of that out there these days. Total magnetic activity, that's the real juice. I deal with this in another video called Primary Trend. So I'm going to stop here with this line of thought and get back to Mr. Jensen. It is amazing to think that the entire boom and bust business cycle can be boiled down to sunspot numbers. Yet in the 19 years I have had Luther Jensen's book, Astral Cycles and Speculative Markets, I can say through first-hand examination and research on over 100 years of historical data that indeed this is the cause of the business cycle. This presentation is being compiled in March of 2016. At the time of this writing, the sunspot cycle has peaked, and the business cycle has also peaked. It has been showing up in the data, and the worldwide economy said to be slowing. This was easy for me to predict years in advance. My next target, a massive economic low point, is in 2020 to 2022 area. So we move down in economic activity. We move down from about the 2015 area into the 2020 to 2022 area. Okay, very important, to get the big picture. And to see more on this, like I said, I put it in a different video. What's important to us in this presentation is that Jensen really helps us understand W.D. Gann's methods. Jensen never directly alludes to Gann in his book, but he worked for him for over 25 years. Jensen definitely, capital, all caps there, knew Gann's methods. Therefore, it is important to research not only Gann, but Jensen's book first, as this will provide background to the seeker. Okay? And that's a critical concept. Let's take a look at some parts of Jensen's book. I first acquired my book on April 3rd, 1997. And instead of showing pristine copies, which I could have acquired on the internet, I wanted to show you my well-worn original. Okay? So these are some notes. And like I said, they go back, 18, 19 years on some of this stuff. Okay? So, and it's kept that way to kind of give you more of a flavor, more of a seasoning into it. I'm just going to read some parts out of it that I feel are important. Okay, this is from page 102 of that book. A Pythagorean proposition is that all things consist of three: the Trinity of Proportions, or the arithmetical, geometrical, and harmonical. In market terms, this is a clue to the relationship which exists between the angle of lift in charted prices, the prices, and the extent or time of market activity in days, weeks, or months. Pythagoras taught further that there is a numerical relation in all phenomena. The harmonic intervals of numbers with sounds, relationship that the square of the hypotenuse in a right-handed triangle is equal to the sum of the squares on the other two sides, and more important, that angles of a sphere have specifically corresponding numbers which are sensitive to those angles in space, infinity, and time. The lift, and I added angle, of charted prices does coincide with numbers at specific points in space, corresponding to price and time. And these observations is the entire basis of geometrical charts. Okay? Now what he's talking about there, he's giving you clues into this. He's saying arithmetical, geometrical, and harmonical. If you understand anything about music, you know about the arithmetic means, the geometric means, and so on. Okay? Let's move on. I could just read the whole book to you. I mean, it's really that good. But for the sake of this video, we'll just read some important parts. Okay. This 90-degree angle is the square unit symbol of the meeting of force and resistance. Two 90-degree angles are equal to 180 degrees, or the symbol of opposition and alternative. Okay. These two divisions form the basis of all angles and divisions, not only circles, but of any unit, like 1/2, 1/4, 1/8, 1/16, etc., all harmonical divisions of 90, while 1/3, 1/6, 1/9, etc., are all harmonical divisions of 120. Okay? Now, this is critical, what he says here, and I'm going to give you the golden key to this, okay? Because he's not just talking about circles. You can start this at highs and lows. Maybe I'll put that in a different video someday, okay? You can start this at highs and lows, and that's what's critical here, all right? You can read some of this other stuff on your own. Just pause it and read it. I got to keep going. According to the Pythagorean observation, the degree units, angles, of a circle have numerical coordinates which are harmonical. In this instance, the 90 degrees from A to B represents 90 units of measure from A to F and F to B, and so on and so forth. Okay, what he's doing is he's getting into this what's called the square of 90. Okay, and we'll take a look at that coming up. Okay, all degree units or angles of a circle have numerical coordinates which are harmonical. Okay, up here, the other illustrates how four triangles form on the major harmonics of 120. From the axis, these points form angles of 90, 45, 22, 11 1/4, 67 1/2, etc. in the squares, and 75, 60, 30, 15, 45, 90, etc. in the trines. Note that 90 and 45 appear in both groups. There's a lot of typos in here, okay? The 45 and 90 do not appear in the trines, all right? All right. In time, measure all harmonical points of 90, or from 0 to 360, represent days, weeks, months of resistance from a major high or low. This coincides with 88, 44, and 22 day cycles of Mercury, like 90, 45, and 22 and a half. Okay? Over here on this page, on the circumference 0 to 0 is an angle of 71 1/4. Note the minor resistance at 33 1/3 and the major resistance at 11 1/4 days or weeks and 22 1/2. So it can be readily observed that the Pythagorean postulate proves out that there's a harmonical relationship between angles and numbers, which in terms of the market charts tie up the lift of the price structure with time and resistance. Okay, so how this works in financial markets, and believe me, some of these notes on here that you're reading that are my own handwriting are very old. But how this works is you got a trend that goes up. Well, it's going to have resistance in time. And what is meant by resistance in time? As it goes up, you'll come up on a time cycle pivot, a time cycle turn. And that time cycle turn is what allows you to predict the length of that angle, you see. Okay. Here's a square of 90. Okay, you can go through Gann's charts and notice Gann was really big on the square of 90. And here's the instructions for the square of 90 down here. Gann doesn't really give you this information, okay? And yet it's so critical to understand, all right? Really, really critical stuff, all right? As you can see, this is a square of 90. We've got 90 going up and 90 going across. See that? Good deal. So the importance of Jensen's book can quickly be seen, and we just touched on a couple of elements, literally just a couple. Did you know this information? My guess is a lot of you out there that are viewing this video were unaware of these connections. If you have gained insight from my video, subscribe so you can get the latest on my free market calls, forecasts, commentary, and teachings. Knowledge is priceless. Hey, this is BA telling you, reminding you that you can succeed.